Good evening, Dr. Tim Maggs here. I'm here with Alan Gadsden, again, Concerned Parents of Young Athletes program, and we're working hard, Alan and I, to get this out there every week because it's such a critical mission that we're on. Not enough people are out there looking at this population and talking about prevention of injuries and how to stay in the sport longer, how to enjoy it more, and how to do those things to help prevent it. So Alan, as always, thank you for joining me tonight. I know you got a busy schedule, so I appreciate you taking the time out.
Thank you for having me. I'm enjoying it. It's a saying that I live by, and I say in my family a lot. When people say they don't have time, um, you have to flip it in your head, and you make time for the things that are important. And
Right.
this is
Yeah.
to me.
Well, and you're living, the father of a very active, talented high school athlete. So it's going to be fun during the basketball season to kind of monitor how Charles does. But you've got a front row seat to it, so that's why I'm thrilled that you're here. So
Thanks a lot. I do want to
yeah,
say before we get started that I know we send this podcast out to various people in both of our fields. This is just a jacket. I am not affiliated at all with the United States Olympic Committee at all. So I don't want anyone to take anything that I say as I'm on any Olympic team yet. But
yeah,
that would be a goal for the.
yeah. Well, it looks great on you. So if you ever get to the point where it's actually accurate, that's a feather in your cap, but it looks good.
Future.
All right, so kind of let's get started here. We're going to tonight go over overuse injuries, and again, this is a huge topic in the middle school, high school market. And Alan, you shot me the banner this week. The NBA has been surveying top high school players, and they came out with some stats. And I'll just quickly read them. Over a 6-year period, they found that 80 to 110, the number of games the average elite youth basketball player plays per year. 50% did not have time off from organized basketball activities in a 12-month span. And over half of respondents had played 4 games in a day and 7 games in a weekend. Are you overuse injuries common in youth sports today? So let's those stats that you sent me, Alan, what are your thoughts on that? Because your son Charles and you are out and about, going to these tournaments and that type of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, those are statistics that are mind blowing, but they're pretty close to accurate because we can use, a tournament that my son played in uh, over the summer, and the tournament went from a Thursday to a Sunday, and this AAU world is not a regulated organization, so normally players go with the team that shows up to the tournament. So you play a game a day. So you would go Thursday with a game, Friday with a game, Saturday with a game. But if your team does well, you might get 2 games on a Sunday for a championship game. So you're playing those games, uh, back to back days, very little rest. Depending on what time your game is on Thursday, you might be playing, very early in the morning on a Friday, maybe the evening on Saturday, what have you. Sometimes these kids wind up hopping on with a different team, uh, throughout that week because there's a team that's close by in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
They maybe jump in and play another game. So the numbers of games that young athlete is playing in that week could be a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, and the body is not being taken care of pre or post game. So you put that in mixed in with the overuse. It's highly uh, expected that a player could get injured
Yeah.
through over. It is 1 week of playing basketball.
Yeah. It's similar to When I was with the New York Giants, I learned that pro players, when they start their pro career, they get a jacket or a diary, and they keep all medical records in there. They keep the history of their injuries and that type of thing. And it's the same thing with this age group because I deal with so many of them. There is no jacket or no unified place that x-rays are put or MRIs are put or history is put. And so they've got whoever they've gone to and had all of this imaging done and the history done, it's not in a unified place. And I think that's probably something we should look at as part of our Concerns Parents program, is to create a software program for them to be able to keep that information. And likewise, there's no master over each athlete. So an athlete is just kind of jumping from team to team and game to game, but no one is looking at the overall number of minutes or injuries or those types of things that are happening to them. So they're kind of governing themselves, which I don't think is a good plan.
No, and I'll add this as well. Uh, so let's say a player doesn't switch teams, and that's a small percentage, but players do it. So let's say a player doesn't switch a team, and this team enters a tournament to play in. Sometimes these teams only show up with 6 or 7 guys, and so the coach now has 6 or 7 players, and to the parent and to the player, this is a great situation because your son or daughter is going to get a lot of minutes. They're going to play a lot, and to those parents and to those players, the message being received is they're receiving, excuse me, is if they're playing, they're going to be seen. And this usually is a mindset that people take very early in a player's career, where the teaching needs to be, you're not going to be seen by college coaches, at a very young age. This is about development, getting better, learning the game, all those other things. And so you get 6 or 7 players that are on this team that are going away. That's a lot of minutes on the body each game, each day. And so then you hope that a player doesn't get injured during that week in a tournament, because if you do, now you're down a player. And so those 7 players are now down to 6, and you're playing a lot of minutes going
Yeah,
up and down. And then with tournament rules, you don't get very many timeouts per game. You may get 2 timeouts a half, and
right.
so the rest is just not there
Yeah.
for a player.
And I would say, having dealt, for the last 20 years with literally hundreds of families that come in, and a lot of the parents, you're very hands-on. You played college basketball, you played pro basketball, you get it. A lot of parents give it up to the coaches and they just trust the coaches 100%. So if their kid's playing a lot, they're probably more excited than anything, but not really thinking in terms of the long-term effect that it's going to have on them.
Correct. And if and fear of missing out is a real thing for parents and young players. Is if you don't play in this particular tournament, you're not going to be seen. Or if you don't play uh, with this particular team, you're not going to be seen. So, the fear of missing out is a real thing, and players are actually not prepared to go compete. Very, very many times, these teams may have 1 or 2 practices a week, if that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some, some don't have, the body is not even prepped and ready for the pounding that it's going in those days.
Yeah, and the other thing that I stress, and it's a message I've been getting out there, is they may not get injured in any one of these games, but the body keeps a perfect scorecard of all of the stresses that it goes through. There's an accumulation factor, and
Correct.
that's something that down the road that's going to play a part. All right, so let's go back to this question, Alan. Are you overuse injuries common in youth sports today? So I asked Chat GPT, and it was kind of interesting. Yes, overuse injuries are very common today. They've been rising steadily over the past 2 decades. Why? Early specialization. Many children focus on a single sport year round. having started before the age of 10 without seasonal breaks, same tissues and joints are stressed repeatedly, creating microtrauma that doesn't have time to heal. High training loads, again, they're in the weight room at a young age. Growth factors, which again, I'm going to talk about in a little bit on this show, and insufficient rest and recovery. Kids often lack built-in recovery strategies, sleep, proper nutrition, which further magnifies the risk. One of the things that I work with a lot, especially while parents are there, I tell a 14-year-old, you've got to become more mature than your age. You've got to do things that require more discipline than a 14-year-old is capable of doing. So we want to start teaching it to you now because your activities are at a level above where you should be. So at the very least, you've got to use ice, you've got to rest, you've got to treat injuries with respect. Don't treat them emotionally like a young kid, hoping it isn't there. And there's such a learning curve that is needed, and I don't think that program is out there today anywhere.
Right. I agree. I agree. And to add to that too, when we specialize kids in a sport very early, we know that's not for a young player's body. But when we have a multi-sport athlete, that's good as well. But you want to be careful that you're not playing a basketball game in, the morning, and then you got baseball in the afternoon, and you got, tennis later on, or whatever it is. So you want to spread out, when you say multi-sport, spread it out throughout a season,
Yeah,
but not it all in a day. And that goes to the one stat that was there, that kids are playing 12 months out of the year. They're just backing, they're stacking days, uh,
right.
playing, but they're not stacking days by resting and being smart.
Well, we've talked about the fact that um, entities are investing billions in youth sports because of the popularity. And I don't think that they're looking at it from a protect the kids point of view. I think they're looking at it from an exposure point of view. So there's a lot of risks that are coming down the road if someone isn't out there to try and set the guardrails up and educate both the investors and the families that, yeah, this is going to be a great thing, but let's approach it logically.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so ChatGPT goes on to say examples of common overuse injuries: little league shoulder and elbow, which I see all the time. It's like every kid is a pitcher. Uh,
Mm.
Osgood Schlatter and Seaver's disease, the knee and the heel. And again, overuse injuries stresses that. Stress fractures. Now, stress fractures are someone who's ignored the strain sprain, ignored the bone inflammation, and it reaches a stress fracture. And it's ignoring the signs and symptoms, and ending up with stress fractures. Tendonitis bursitis. Studies showed nearly 50% of youth sports are due to overuse, not acute trauma. Some sports report especially high rates. Sports medicine experts now consider overuse injury prevention one of the top challenges in youth athletics. This is exactly why biomechanical screenings and prevention, like the structural fingerprint exam, the Dr. Mag's leg length test, orthotics, and proactive injury prevention departments are gaining traction. They address underlying imbalances before overuse injuries become chronic, costly problems. So there is no doubt that you and I are at the forefront of this whole tsunami, and it isn't just presenting the problem, but it's also providing the answers. And one of the things that, as you know, that I'm working to do is to create a national network of doctors to be skilled in providing these exams and interpreting the information and managing these kids, because every kid has a breaking point. Even the perfect kid, if the perfect kid existed, perfect biomechanics, muscular balance, they still have a breaking point. But our goal is to identify, no kid is perfectly balanced. So our goal is to find those imbalances, improve the balances, elevate their threshold, and then to educate them as to how to manage themselves better. So it's kind of a huge message, Alan, and you and I are going to have to do a lot of podcasts to really get it out there. But, it gives us cause to get up every day and kind of work at it. So, anyways, we have a 15-year-old male runner, bilateral shin splints, meaning both legs.
Ouch.
And it's so common. It's so common. And here's the problem. The problem is no one in the industry knows that this biomechanical imbalance structure is every kid. And we've learned now to try to educate. We call it actuary Alex, Alex, boy or girl, actuary. There are costs that are going to be attached to these imbalances. There are emotional costs, there are physical costs, there are economic costs, and the industry should be begging to find out how do we mitigate those costs. And it's two ways simply. One, identify those imbalances, correct them as much as you can, and manage the kids better. Proactive care, not just reactive care. So this young man comes in. We talk about the law of tissue tolerance. You overload a tissue, it's going to start screaming. It's so simple. You don't have to go hunting for it. It'll tell you where it's being overloaded. And shin splints lead to stress fractures so fast, and everybody wants to live in denial of it. And the kid is kind of in charge, or the coach, no pain, no gain kind of coach. And that just, it's never a good mix. So, Alan, one of the important things today is the Dr. Mag's Feet First system. My entire career has come down to this one point. If we had to do one thing for all these kids, start them with orthotics, because they all have imbalances in the feet. And there's a part two to this, but part one is starting with orthotics. And there's all kinds of orthotics out there, different levels of quality. We said you don't need custom, you need quality over the counter to create symmetry of the feet. We have them in our office. We have them available. We start every patient with orthotics. So we take an x-ray of the young man, 15 years old, with his orthotics on. He's got a 6.1 millimeter difference in hip height. 3 and below is optimal. 6 is beyond optimal, and what it does is it changes the weight distribution through the two lower extremities, making one work harder than the other. That's a simple explanation of what's going on. And so we have to put a lift on his right orthotic to help balance the hip. So we can put a lift on, a 5 millimeter lift, which should get that within that 3 millimeters. Now, we've shown this slide before, but it's a huge slide. It's the young boy with an x-ray taken at 13, at 15, at 17. And you can see his hip height difference increases every 2 years as he matures. Now, you have none of these kids being x-rayed at all, yet every year or 2 years, they can be different, and it requires a different modification. So we're really going out there trying to get a paradigm shift to teach docs how to do it and to teach families the importance of it. So once we balance the hips and get orthotics in the shoes, now we have laser on the young man's shins. One of the therapies out there, there's multiple therapies. I think laser is the best. We've been using it for years. It accelerates the healing process of injured tissue. We balanced him. We're accelerating the injury healing. Now, the option, Alan, and you and I have kind of gone through this with Charles as well. Does the young man continue running during this first series of treatments? And as I did with you, I let the family decide that, because there's a lot at stake. If these seasons are so short. So if you take a young kid out and for 4 weeks to get this to heal, I mean, he might as well quit, because he's lost all conditioning, and he's never going to get back in. So most families want to keep their kids in, and I say, okay, but we're not going to allow it to get worse. If it starts to get worse, then I'm going to recommend we stop. We don't want it to go to a stress fracture, but we don't know what it is because we can't have an MRI. The only way you know is if it's a stress reaction or stress fracture is with an MRI. So if he's running and can tolerate it, and we're lasering him and he's not getting worse, I said sometimes during the season, your hope is that he can do the season without getting worse. That sometimes is a success. So you have to really have good communication with the family. And this family's elected for him to continue the season. They're bringing him in for laser throughout the season. So everyone, you're hoping for the best, but it's a journey. It's a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yes.
And you
One
went
thing you,
through it.
yeah, and one thing that you did do in the office that I think is something I don't even think we touched on it yet on the podcast is that not only are orthotics something that Charles has in his sneakers when he plays, he lasers and UKT tape as well. And
Yep. And we have
oh,
this young man. See what has to happen during my workday. I have to put on my photographer's hat too, and I have to then go in and talk to the parents about why I'm photographing their children. And
mm,
so this this is in the middle of a busy afternoon. So mom said, "Absolutely, go ahead." But I didn't have it in there when we went out. But we did tape him, and we have taped him, and we teach the parents how to tape as well because it's not a high tech issue, but it does help an awful lot.
it does.
Yeah. Okay. So now here's the goal with everybody. There's the before and there's the after. And that's the goal. And the more balanced we can make you, whatever we have to do to get you to the after, that's what we want to do. And the quicker, the more we can get you to the after and keep you in the after and keep you managed. It's a management process, the better all youth athletes are going to do. So I think this was a good show today, Alan, to just remind everybody and kind of hit some hot spots. But it's a participation activity. It's not one you read about or listen about and hope your kid doesn't get injured.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So
That's
we
right.
got a lot of work ahead of us. But anyways, there you have it. Thank you so much, Alan. As always, thank you for taking the time out tonight. And drtimmags.com, anybody has questions. And other than that, we wish you the best luck. We'll be back next week. Take
We
care.
will see you.
Yep.